Tonight, the other side of the Abu Ghraib story. The guards speak out.
Your life is on the line every day. You lose control. That's what happened. It happened to anyone.
I hate that I even know the word Abu Ghraib. I hate it because it hurts.
And the former Abu Ghraib commander accuses Defence Secretary Donald Rumsfeld of being responsible for the torture and abuse.
The Secretary of Defence authorised it in conversations with General Miller.
G'day, George Negus again. Welcome to another hour of Dateline. And first, the latest chapter in reporter Olivia Rousseau's Abu Ghraib revelations. 3 weeks ago on the program, Olivia revealed new evidence of horrific abuse at Abu Ghraib. Her report attracted headlines, praise and condemnation right around the globe. Unsurprisingly, both the Pentagon and the US administration played down the new images that we screened. Tonight, another very human side to the Abu Ghraib story. On a recent trip to the US, Olivia tracked down two former Abu Ghraib guards, one who served time for committing abuses against Iraqi detainees, and another who witnessed those shocking events. It's no small irony that both of these former US military policemen now see themselves as being among the victims of Abu Ghraib. Here's Olivia's story, and as you'd expect with this sort of report, be warned. Some of what you're about to see is not exactly pretty and could even offend.
In the eyes of much of the world, this man is a torturer.
The prodigal son has returned. This is him. We love him to death.
But in his hometown of Roselle, New Jersey, Javal Davis is a young man who lives with his grandparents and goes to church every Sunday. When he left school, he joined the army to serve his country. Soon after spending several months peacekeeping in Bosnia, he was shipped off to Iraq.
We were trained up before we left. You know, all I was learning to do, that we were going to go over there, we were going to fight. Fight, fight, fight. Kill, kill, kill. You know, the enemy. You know, and once they're destroyed, you know, then we'd go home. You know, and it didn't turn out to be exactly that way.
Like other guards at Abu Ghraib, Javal Davis put prisoners in stress positions, threw cold water on them, and played loud music to keep them awake in preparation for interrogations. He pleaded guilty to assaulting a group of prisoners and then lying about it to investigators. But he says we shouldn't condemn him.
Unless you were there, live it, sleep it, eat it every day, you know, stay open about drawing an opinion. It's easy to draw a conclusion or what I woulda, shoulda, coulda did from the comforts of your living room on the couch watching CNN, you know. But if you were actually on the other side of CNN, on the other side of the camera, you know, fighting for your life, then you don't. That's the only way you'd understand, and that's it.
I hate that I even know the word Abu Ghraib. I hate it because it hurts. It's like a wound that doesn't heal.
3 Charlie 32 to assist.
Like Javal, Ken Davis was a military policeman in the 372nd Company. He enlisted on September 11th, 2001, wanting to do something for his country. But scarred by his experiences in Iraq, he left the army and became a policeman in Maryland.
I went over there believing that I can help Iraqi people be free. I believe in that. But after Abu Ghraib, I wish I'd have never been a part. When someone will come up to me and say, hey, we hear you were in Iraq, what unit were you with? I have to pick my head up and I say I was with the 372nd P Company.
Last year, in my first story on Abu Ghraib, I interviewed Iraqis who were tortured in the prison. Abu Man and Haj Ali shared terrible stories with me about months they spent without charge, being abused by guards and interrogators.
يسحبون أقسام مال المسدس يخلونه هنا مفرد شي يسوي لي بالعربي إعدام إعدام إعدام.
شنو علاقة المعلومات أني شربك بول. إذا كان يريد ياخذ معلومات. ما له مو معلومات، الموضوع مو معلومات، الموضوع بعض الأمريكان تنتابهم حالات سادية على رأسها رامسفيلد، سادي رقم 1، وانسحبت السادية إلى بعض الأمريكان وليس كلهم.
أبد ما نسوي نفس يعني صح الملامح تختلف، لكن الوحش نفس الوحش، هو خلف هذا القناع اللي لابسه.
I wanted to find out what had turned ordinary American soldiers into the apparent monsters revealed in the photographs. According to Ken and Javal, Abu Ghraib was living hell for the guards as well as the prisoners.
You know, it was very fearful, and being alone was, you know, we were out there and pretty much on our own at Abu Ghraib. Like, you drive 3 miles up the street from our prison, you're in Fallujah. And if you drive a couple miles west, you're in Ramadi. Now, if you remember watching television, Fallujah and Ramadi were like the hottest spots in Iraq. And we were right there. They would come down from Fallujah, shoot mortars at us, and drive back into Fallujah.
The military police from the 372nd Company, like Ken and Javal, were never trained to guard prisoners. But at times there were up to 7,000 Iraqis being held in overcrowded conditions for months on end. There were around 75 prisoners to each soldier.
You know, we worked 7 days straight, you know, 12, 16-hour days. You know, we didn't have enough people to man all the positions, and it was hard.
And where did you sleep?
I slept in the prison cell. With that, it was myself and 7 other soldiers. You know, we were, you know, 7 to a cell. I mean, we slept in the same conditions that the prisoners did.
But the prisoners certainly received different treatment. When I met with Ken and Javal, I had already obtained a disc with thousands of previously unreleased photographs taken by MPs who served at the prison. Of the thousands of photos and videos taken at Abu Ghraib, most are snapshots of the everyday life of the soldiers. Others reveal how out of control the prison had become. The most shocking experience for both Javal and Ken was on November 24, 2003, in the camp compound outside the cell blocks. The prisoners started a riot to protest their living conditions, which official reports say were overcrowded and dangerous.
I heard it over the radio. I heard it out loud. I heard it. All you heard was over the radio, we're out of less lethal. It's not working. You know, like, what do we do?
And the command came back across the radio, and it just sent shivers down our backs. They said, if you're out of non-lethal rounds, we are in a combat zone, you go to lethal rounds.
So we're going hot. We're going live. The next thing you know, boom, boom, brrr, brrr, pew, 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 pew. And you just heard it. It's like a turkey shoot.
You got to understand, these are Iraqis unarmed. You know, they might have shanks, spoons that they've sharpened, whatever, tent stakes, rocks, but they're inside of concertina wire. They're not going anywhere. And now they're being shot. So as I roll up, I have my weapon out. I'm thinking people are breaching the wire. They're coming through, and no one's coming through the wire.
Next thing you know, the medevac chopper's coming in. You know, the helicopter's coming in like crazy. you know, taking out the wounded ones and the dead ones.
And I see them all huddled in a second containment area where their tents are, and they're dragging a dead guy out and throwing him by my feet. So I look at the chaplain's aide who responded. He had ended up right beside me, and I said, "What are we doing?" I said, "This guy's dead, and he's unarmed."
Yeah, when it went to live ammunition, wow. I mean, it's one of those things. Yeah, I mean, it was unfortunate. A lot of lives were lost that day. Oh yeah.
These are the corpses of the men killed that day. The US Army told Dateline that the use of live rounds was justified.
Else, and I remember calling home that night and saying, "I can't take this here anymore, because if this is what we're going to do, if this is what we have come to, I'm done." But being done and being able to leave is two different things. So you just have to suck it up, get over it, as they say, and just do what you're told to do.
In the months leading up to the riot, the insurgency had taken hold, and the Americans were desperate for intelligence to stop the killing of their troops. In September 2003, General Jeffrey Miller, who was in charge of Camp X-Ray at Guantanamo Bay, was sent to Abu Ghraib to upgrade interrogation techniques. When Javal Davis arrived, soon after Miller's new regime had started, things were already far from normal.
When we took over from the 72nd MP Company, you know, the guys were buck naked in this jail cells and had like panties on their head. Like, I'd never seen that before. I'm like, oh, yeah, why are these guys naked? Our company commander was even like, hey, what's going on with all the nakedness? Why are these guys naked? You know, and their answer back to them from the other MP company was, hey, this is what the MI got. This is what they want. You know, this is, you know, that's how it goes. So
putting MI, or military intelligence, in charge of the MPs was one of General Miller's recommendations, even though it runs counter to Army doctrine. Who told you to stress the prisoners out, or who told you to prepare them for interrogation?
The military intelligence personnel. They had an analyst, a linguist, and an interrogator. And that was their job. They come up with a list of instructions. Like, okay, keep this guy up, sleep for 2 hours, up for 5 hours, you know, sleep for 15 minutes, up, you know, slam the doors, keep them up, you know, stress positions, things like that. Nothing inside you thought, I shouldn't be doing this? I mean, of course. I mean, it's morally, I mean, who wants to, well, first off, my attitude was, I'm tired. I'm an MP. I'm a combat support MP. It's not my job. I don't feel like going around waking everybody up. I want to go to sleep myself. You know, so some nights I didn't do what they told me to do. That's why ultimately I was replaced. You know, I mean, let the story be told correctly.
While he spent several months at Abu Ghraib, Javal Davis only spent 1 week guarding high-value prisoners in cell block 1A, which is where most of the photos of abuse were taken. So what did you do in that week you're in cell block 1A? Hit the garbage can, slam doors, throw cold water, play the radio music loud, you know, stuff like that. You know, that's what I did. It just kept them awake, made life miserable. Put the radio up to the megaphone and play heavy metal music for like 4 hours straight, you know? That's it. Some of the younger detainees, you know, they started liking it. So you'll see them playing air guitar out of their cell door, you know, and they're like, yeah. So, oh God, I gotta change this. So I changed out that. I put in rap music. Everyone loves hip hop music, all the youth. So you see them bobbing their heads in the cell. I'm like, oh, I can't play that. So then I settled with country music. They hate country music. That was the kicker. That worked. Did you get to the point, did you feel that you were turning into a monster?
Yeah, I mean, I could see, I wouldn't say a monster, but, I mean, yeah, you could say a monster. I was totally desensitized, just like over time of being at Abu Ghraib, you know, with your life on the line every day, you just start to not care. I mean, that's pretty much how it went.
The soldier who was seen as the biggest monster of all at Abu Ghraib was the so-called ringleader, Charles Grainer. This is him on November 8, 2003. The prisoners in these photos are the same people that Javal Davis was convicted of assaulting. These men were suspected of leading a riot in the outside camp, which resulted in a female MP being hit in the face with a brick. This attack infuriated Javal.
Everyone was very upset, myself included. That was the last straw. We're eating the same food, living in the same cells. My life sucks just like yours. I'm away from home, you know, and you sitting here, you trying to take our life. That's it. I snapped, and that's what happened. You know, your mind frame, your way of thinking is so jaded because, you know, your life sucks there. Your life is on the line every day. You lose control. That's what happened. It happened to anyone.
Javal Davis was charged with throwing his body weight on the pile of prisoners. According to him, it was an isolated 10-second lapse of judgment.
You see, if you look at my record of trial, exactly what I'm accused of, exactly what I was charged with. Stepping on the finger and toe of a detainee, landing on them with my body weight, getting up, yelling at them, and leaving.
Later that night, when Javal had left the scene, the prisoners were stripped naked and ordered to masturbate. Grainer then put the prisoners in formation for a human pyramid. Ken Davis says that Grainer felt he was being compromised and did consult his conscience when he started to torture the prisoners.
Grainer actually came to me early in October and had told me that they're making him do things that are legally and morally, he feels are legally and morally wrong.
He said that?
He did, and that was early October. Late October is when all the pictures, you know, a lot of the events started taking place. When people slate Grainer and these 7 as monsters, you have to ask yourself, who created the environment for this to go on? Who opened the door for these people, these young soldiers, to walk through? Those are the monsters.
On November 16, 2003, a few weeks after the torture had begun, Grainer got a commendation from his platoon leader, Captain Brinson.
Corporal Grainer, you are doing a fine job in Tier 1. You have received many accolades from the military intelligence units here, and specifically from Lieutenant Colonel Jordan. Continue to perform to this level, and you will help us succeed at our overall mission.
For someone, after they've done all this, to get a counseling statement praising the work you're doing on Tier 1A in the hard site, you're not going to stop. You're going to keep going, and you're going to take it up a notch. You're going to take it up a level, especially when you're getting high fives and attaboys and keep up the great work, you know, from officers of military intelligence and OGA.
Charles Grainer is currently serving a 10-year prison sentence.
Sir, I was a soldier, and if I did wrong, here I am.
The longest sentence anyone has received for torturing prisoners to death in Iraq is 5 months.
Oh, here we go.
Is that what you wanted?
No, these are... That's actually my prison cell. That's my bed inside the prison cell.
Ken Davis came home in early December 2003 to get treatment for an injury. He says he reported the abuses he witnessed to Army superiors, but no one took any notice.
At first, they were just like, oh, really? See a chaplain. Talk to a chaplain about it. Talk to the chaplain about it. And a lot of people, they use psychology on you. Well, it's all your perception. It's how you perceive things. Maybe it's not as bad as what it really is.
A few weeks later, on January 14, MP Joseph Darby handed investigators a disc containing photos of abuse. Another 3 months passed before the scandal became public.
I mean, I was sitting eating in a chow hall, and I looked up at CNN, and I saw a picture of me when I was like 16 years old. I'm like, what the hell am I doing on television? And then I saw like the photographs, and I couldn't believe it. I'm like, oh my God.
When the torture scandal broke, Javal Davis and 6 other low-ranking soldiers were charged for the abuses. All defended themselves by saying they were acting under direct orders. The army denies this, claiming they acted on their own volition.
They tried to say that, we're some uneducated, dumb, poor kids, from like Garbage Can, USA, when it didn't turn out to be that way. It's like I actually do have a brain. I actually do have some intelligence, and I wasn't going to just lay down and let the government, run my name in the ground of my family, or lead people astray. It's not going to happen that way.
Before Abu Ghraib, Javal Davis had an exemplary record. He was a track and field star at high school, and seeing his leadership potential, his coach encouraged him to join the army. Even though Javal has served his time, he and his family are determined to appeal his conviction. Paul Berggren is their lawyer.
What's going on, man? Javal Davis. Long time no see.
What's going on, brother?
Good.
Pretty good yourself?
How you doing?
Pretty good.
Paul Berggren is pinning his hopes on the upcoming trial of 2 dog handlers at Abu Ghraib, Sergeants Michael Smith and Santos Cardona, who were also charged with abusing prisoners.
It looks like it's starting to explode from almost the top now.
The former head of military intelligence at Abu Ghraib has been given immunity to testify at the dog handler's trial. Paul Berggren is sure this will expose the entire chain of command's responsibility for the abuses.
Because I don't think there's any way in the world anyone wants to know what Rumsfeld told Sanchez and what Sanchez told Jeffrey Miller. Because you know what they told him. We don't care what you do, just get in there and get us information. You could kill them for, we care. Treat them like dogs, that's what they are. We don't care how you get the information. Your job is to get the information. And I think that's what, that's starting to roll downhill.
Javal Davis always saw himself as a proud and dedicated soldier. But the way he was treated by the military has left him deeply disillusioned.
If I could say something to decision makers, I'd say you stabbed me in the back, you stabbed a whole bunch of soldiers in the back, left a whole lot of soldiers out there to dry. That's what I say to my leadership, shame on you.
Andy, since I'm not going to be here, neither is Steve, Ted.
Ken Davis hasn't lost faith in all of America's institutions, but he thinks that by not telling the truth about Abu Ghraib, the military and the administration will pay the price.
It was said right in the New Testament, the truth doesn't have to justify itself because the truth will be known. So it's kind of one of those things where, okay, if you want to lie, go ahead, because the truth will be known and people are going to see it. And if that's what you want your legacy based on, fine. And there's soldiers that know the truth. We battle with what we battle internally. The war isn't over for us because inside is a fight every single day that we live.
2 young Americans with some pretty ordinary memories of their stint in Iraq. Olivia Rousset both filming and reporting there. Well, all this build-up of gruesome detail about events at Abu Ghraib raises, of course, the ultimate question. Who bears the responsibility for what went on there? How far up the chain of command do we need to go? The commander of the US military police at Abu Ghraib at the time of the torture and abuse was Brigadier General Janice Karpinski. It was part of her overall responsibility for 17 prisons in Iraq. But following the photo scandal and a subsequent army inquiry, Janice Kopinski was relieved of her command and demoted. She's since left the US military and written a book in which she claims that far from stopping with her, the buck goes all the way to the top, to the US Defence Secretary Donald Rumsfeld and maybe even the White House. Earlier today, I spoke with now citizen Janice Kopinski via satellite from Savannah, Georgia. Janice, thanks very much for your time.
Thank you. Glad to be with you.
The world was actually quite outraged by what happened at Abu Ghraib, and now people are wanting to know how in heaven that could possibly happen. You've claimed that you were a scapegoat for all of this, that the whole thing went right to the top. Who do you think is ultimately responsible?
Well, I think if you're looking to find the start, you have to go back to the memorandum that was authored by our now Attorney General, Alberto Gonzales, and John Yoo from out in California, who was with the current administration at the time. And they did a memorandum authorizing departures from the Geneva Convention.
Right, so what you're saying is that people like yourself, as the commander of the prison at the time, had no idea that the American government was taking no notice whatsoever of any Geneva Convention, and therefore, if you like, the gloves were off and anything was okay so far as torture and interrogation was concerned.
Absolutely. And remember that military police detention operations are separate and apart from military interrogations. And they always have been. There are regulations that govern the conduct of soldiers in each of those specialties. There had never been any discussion of military police personnel working for interrogators or with interrogators or setting the conditions as was happening down at Guantanamo Bay. None of those discussions were held with me or anybody else in the 800th Military Police Brigade.
Are you saying, and you've said it goes right to the top, you've mentioned Attorney General Gonzales, but are you saying that the American government at the highest level sanctioned, condoned, if indeed didn't encourage, what we now know to be the abuse of detainees?
The memorandum, which was certainly discussed at length, with the Secretary of Defense and the Vice President, according to sworn statements by people who were there when those conversations took place, that authorized the initial departure. And yes, there was a memorandum that was posted at Abu Ghraib prison that I only became aware of after I heard of this ongoing investigation out at Abu Ghraib, and it was signed by the Secretary of Defense.
Is that a note in the margin that said, this must happen?
Yes.
And you attribute that to Donald Rumsfeld?
Well, the signature on that memorandum was over the signature block of the Secretary of Defense, Donald Rumsfeld, and the ink that was used to sign appeared to be the same ink used for this handwritten note in the margin. Make sure this happens. And it was a list of interrogation techniques that were approved. So he obviously had knowledge of those interrogation techniques.
Janice, you have been attributed with the comment that Donald Rumsfeld ordered the torture that occurred in Abu Ghraib. That's a gigantic call. Are you prepared to stick by that it went that high?
Oh, absolutely. When the Secretary of Defense, when General Miller, when General Sanchez, General Taguba, when they testified before the Senate Armed Services Committee, they were very careful to say, in response to a question about the photographs, that they knew nothing about the photographs. However, nobody on the Senate Armed Services Committee asked them, did you know anything about the actions depicted in those photographs? Because they would have had to give a truthful answer, and the answer would have been, yes, in fact, they authorized the actions depicted in those photographs. The Secretary of Defense authorized it in conversations with General Miller. His Undersecretary for Intelligence not only authorized those actions, but was staying on top of the progress of those actions and those activities.
When you found out that what had been going on in that block, the abuse that was occurring, and we now know from the pictures that we and other networks have shown, what was your reaction? What did you try to do about it?
Well, I was shocked. I was absolutely shocked. And when I saw the photographs, I heard about the investigation actually 11 days before I saw the photographs finally. As soon as I heard that there was an ongoing investigation out at Abu Ghraib, although the prison was no longer, Abu Ghraib itself was no longer under my control, we left the location where we were, very close to the Iranian border, and drove into Baghdad and immediately went out to Abu Ghraib to see see, you know, what had happened, what was this ongoing investigation, what were the allegations. And of course, all of the people, including the soldiers shown in those photographs, they had already been removed from their positions at Abu Ghraib. And shortly after that, when I tried to get access to those soldiers to ask them what in the world was going on, I was told that they didn't work for me, and I had no right to have access to any one of them.
In November of 2003, there was a riot, and we've spoken to two of the guards, two of the people who were under your command originally, who talked about that riot, where unarmed Iraqis were killed using firstly non-lethal ammunition, plastic bullets, and then live ammunition. Who ordered that?
The battalion commander who was on site at Abu Ghraib ordered the soldiers to go to lethal ammunition. It is actually standard operating procedure. Now, when you have several thousand prisoners in confinement and it gets out of control, and it did very quickly, they tried to bring it under control with non-lethal rubber bullets usually, and because it was a winter month, I believe it occurred in October, November timeframe, and it was cold, and so the prisoners had jackets or sweaters on over their clothing. The rubber bullets were not being very effective.
The men that we've spoken to under your command said it was like a turkey shoot, that unarmed Iraqis were gunned down.
I have to tell you, and I have to emphasize this, when you have far too few military police personnel to guard far too many prisoners, and they get out of control, and it is on the verge of them being able to break through the compounds, a battalion commander is authorized to take the action necessary to bring that situation under control.
Janice, the irony is that now you are facing a lawsuit with Donald Rumsfeld, with Sanchez, with Pappas, as being guilty of legal responsibility for the torture and abuse of detainees in Abu Ghraib. Now, if you're an innocent party in all this, somebody who's been a scapegoat for these other people, why are you being charged with that same crime?
Well, because they're trying to make it appear, the organization that filed the lawsuit is the Civil Liberties Union.
Right.
And I believe the Human Rights is involved in the lawsuit as well. And they included me because the soldiers were assigned to a company assigned to one of my subordinate battalions. But the truth will come out during that testimony, and it doesn't make any difference which side I represent. I intend to tell the truth. And the truth is, they kept the information from me. We didn't discover until long after the photographs were released that these actions were endorsed at the highest levels of our government and were taking place at Guantanamo Bay and in Bagram Air Force Base in Afghanistan long before Abu Ghraib was in anybody's discussion.
In all reality, though, if you claim that you're totally innocent of those sorts of charges, do you really expect that Donald Rumsfeld will be found guilty of those allegations, those charges?
No, and it's my understanding that even as recently as yesterday, the attorneys went to court and asked for the case to be dismissed because the Secretary of Defense apparently has some protections in his position.
The Taguba report actually said that you showed lack of leadership in all of this, and therefore you are partly responsible for what happened. So it's certainly not all over yet for you.
It absolutely is not. But I will tell you this, that when they do an investigation with that kind of potential, the rules are very clear. You have to identify an impartial person to do the investigation. And General Taguba did not serve one day in Iraq. He spent his deployment time in the safety of Kuwait. And he was, as it came out afterwards, a good friend of General Sanchez. So if General Sanchez gave the investigating officer specific instructions on what he wanted to see in the conclusions, General Taguba was able and determined to provide and to conclude what General Sanchez wanted to see. And he did exactly that. The findings in the report have been largely discredited because he was not an impartial party and because so much more information has come out.
You believe that the Taguba inquiry was a foregone conclusion, a setup?
Absolutely, no doubt in my mind. Because he was not charged with discovering what caused the photographs. General Taguba's instructions were to investigate the 800th Military Police Brigade and discover what was wrong with General Karpinski.
No doubt we could talk for a lot longer. It's a shame we haven't got more time, but thank you very much for talking to us now.
Thank you. I appreciate it.